All right. Hello, and welcome to our latest instalment of Find My Past from Home. So this is the latest in a series of videos we run every week on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, designed to bring history to you in your homes to help you find your pasts from home. I am Alex Cox. I'm very, very excited today because I've been joined by a very special guest. We're covering a topic that I've been very curious about and interested in for a good while now. Which is mudlarking. I'm joined by Jason Sandy. I think it's fair to say mudlarking royalty. Hello, Jason, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
My pleasure. As I said, I've been really, really excited about this, and I'm sure our viewers will be too. I've got loads of questions for you. I know we won't struggle to fill the time we have. But one of the first things I wanted to mention was I detected a hint of an accent. How where are you from, and how did you find yourself stood in your wellies on the banks of the Thames?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I was born and raised in the United States. I moved to Europe 20 years ago. I was first in Berlin for 8 years, and then I moved here about 12, 13 years ago. So yeah, I've been in Britain now. I became a British citizen a few years back.
Oh,
And
lovely.
I love Britain, and yeah, I love London, especially all the history. So
Oh, it's under your feet everywhere you go, isn't it? You can't turn a corner without being close to something that's rather incredible. But so mudlarking, tell us a little bit more. What is it?
So mudlarking, historically, the term comes from the mudlarks who used to go along the River Thames at low tide back in Victorian times. Basically, they were looking for anything that they could immediately resell. And just to explain for those people that don't know, but the River Thames in London is a tidal river. So it goes up and down about 7 meters twice a day. So these children, Victorian children, would go out at low tide, and the riverbank is exposed, and they would be able to find ship's nails, coal, rope, anything that they could actually resell. That's what they were looking for.
Oh wow! So it was something that was started out of necessity rather than a pastime, effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. They were mudlarking to survive.
Oh
So
wow!
everything they found, they would immediately resell and then use that money to buy bread or necessities for their families.
Oh wow! How times have changed.
Yeah,
What first attracted you to the hobby, I guess?
yeah. So similar to you, I live along the river in West London. So I'm over in Chiswick, which is about 20 minutes by tube from central London. But yeah, and I've got 2 small children. I used to go down at low tide and just throw pebbles into the water with the kids. They love that. Also in our area, there's a lot of wildlife. So we've got crabs, little eels. So we would be turning over rocks, looking for anything that moved and anything that was fascinating for little children. So that's how I started going down to the Thames. But it wasn't until I watched a TV show on the National Geographic Channel that I heard about these people called mudlarks that would go down and find historical artifacts down along the River Thames. And I was like, oh my goodness, I've been going down there for years and I never thought to look for anything. I was just looking for pebbles to throw in the water, not for historical artifacts that are 2,000 years old.
Oh wow! And how deeply? I mean, I guess it depends on the age of the artifact, but how deeply buried are these things? I'm assuming they're just kind of uncovered naturally with the ebb and flow of the river itself. And are they easy to find?
Yeah, that's the thing. You have to kind of know what you're looking for. So it took a few years to kind of, as they say, get your eye in and know what to look for and know where to look. In our area in West London, there's not much erosion of the foreshore because there's not many boats passing up and down. But in central London, as you know, the Thames Clipper is very fast and kicks up quite a big wash. So there's big waves that actually land onto the exposed riverbed, and they're kind of combing the pebbles and combing the rocks and the foreshore away. And that's exposing this archaeology. So you really don't need a trowel, you don't need a metal detector. All you need is a good pair of eyes, and you can find some fascinating things that are just kind of washed up or combed out or scraped out of the riverbed by the passing waves.
Oh wow! And I'm assuming I'm assuming boats weren't traveling quite as fast in the Victorian era when working class children were doing it as they are today. So is that does that make that's made it significantly easier then, I imagine. I mean, I'm not easy. It's just you've got to get your eye in first, but
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that definitely helps us now. And mudlarks back in the 1970s and 80s, before the Thames clippers started going, they used to have to dig quite a deep way down into the riverbed in order to find these treasures. But because now with the Thames clipper and the wash from the boats, it's just kind of laying there on the surface because it's been washed out. And just to remind everyone, to go mudlarking in London, you have to have a license from the Port of London Authority. And anybody can apply for the license. It costs about 75 quid for a 3-year long license.
oh wow.
But pretty much anybody can get a license if you apply.
Oh wow, and £75 for 3 years, you could get a lot out of it, I guess.
Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, yeah.
And
So
this isn't just a hobby for you, is it? It's fair to say this is a passion. Is this something you kind of spend every available moment doing? I imagine a lot of it's weather dependent.
well, not really. I go out in the rain, snow, wind. I go out whenever. It doesn't really matter what the weather is. My wife thinks I'm crazy, but yeah, I just get up and go out. And most of the time, it's very early in the morning or very late at night. So we also go mudlarking at night. So we've got our head torches on, wellies on, our protective gear. And it can be 2 a.m. in the morning and we're out there because the tide is very low sometimes in the
Ah,
summer at that time. So it's always dependent on the tides. You're always looking for the lowest of the low tides to get to the areas which are very or very rarely exposed by the water.
oh wow. Well, one of the other things I wanted to mention at the start, actually, and I very nearly forgot, was to everybody watching who is a potential mudlarker, and I think I've put myself in that bracket. You have a book out at the moment, don't you? Which I'm going to bring up on screen. If I just share my screen. Sorry for the crying baby in the background. Don't know if you can hear that. Right, Control L. There we go. Is that up on screen? You see that?
Yes, yeah, I see it. Great.
Brilliant. So
Yes.
available in all good bookstores, online bookstores, am I correct?
Yeah, exactly. So it's able to pre-order now. I'm not sure exactly when you're going to post this online, but it officially goes on sale, or you can get a copy yourself on the 19th of February. So about a month and a half away before you can actually get it tangibly, but it's available to pre-order now. And the interesting thing about this book is it's not about me and it's not about the co-author, Nick Stevens, who helped me write the book. This is about all mudlarks and the best things that they've found over the past 200 years. So
Oh wow.
mudlarking, like I was saying, it's not just a recent thing. It's also workmen along the river back in the 19th century found some incredible things. And the British Museum has many artifacts from workmen that were just casually working along the river, excavating for bridges, and they found Celtic helmets. They found Celtic shields, and some of the most amazing Celtic artifacts were actually found in the river by workmen back in the 19th century.
Oh wow. And actually, I guess that makes sense because thinking of the Thames itself, I mean, it really has been the I was going to say the spine of what's the right metaphor I'm looking for here? It's such an important river, isn't it? There's so much history surrounding the Thames, and as you said, for thousands and thousands of years, people have been living along its banks, using it to transport goods. Um, so, and when you're saying you in this book you take a historical view as well. You're looking back at about 200 years of discoveries. How are you finding those stories?
So we did a lot of research to figure out what's been found in the Thames, and there's different areas. So for instance, the Saxon era, we as mudlarks don't really find that many Saxon artifacts along the River Thames. They're very rare. So we did a lot of historical research and finding out what has been found from that era specifically, just because there has been a lack of actual mudlarking finds recently from that era. So it's just been a culmination of a lot of research, hearing from veteran mudlarks about some of the best things, and just reading other reference material. But it's just been fascinating to see what's been retrieved from the river. And just to kind of reiterate what you were saying, London wouldn't exist if it weren't for the Thames. The Thames is the whole reason why London exists. It was the superhighway of its time. It was the lifeblood and beating heart and the artery that connected the British Empire with all of the colonies back in the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries. So that's why London flourished, is because of the Thames.
That's the metaphor I was looking for, the artery. That's exactly the one I was after. Brilliant. So as you said, out in February, if people did want to pre-order a copy, where would be the best place to do so?
Yeah, so it's literally on all online bookstores. You can search for it. It's on Amazon, Kobo. If you're in the States, it's at Barnes and Noble's bookstore, Book Depository, Waterstones. So all major bookstores have it online.
Well, I'll be putting my order in this evening, I think. I can't wait to read this. It sounds fascinating.
So over 50 mudlarks helped us with this book and contributed their finds. And it's got over 160 full-page images within the book. So it's really a great treat for the eye as well, for just reading about the artifacts.
And I guess if you're looking to do this yourself, what better way of getting your eye in than
Absolutely.
some of the things that have already been discovered?
Yeah, that's what I did as well. When I started out mudlarking, I was just trawling through social media sites, just looking to see what other people have found. And then I was like, now I know what that is. And those things help you identify the things that you find as well.
And actually, you've just reminded me another thing I wanted to mention as well. So to everybody who is watching and has a particular interest in this, you're quite active on social media yourself, aren't you?
Yes, yeah, I really enjoy that, especially on Instagram, because what we do is so visual, and people love seeing things just kind of coming fresh out of the mud. And I think that's the beauty of mudlarking, is that it makes archaeology tangible and it brings history to life. And a lot of times when I was growing up, reading a boring history book was the last thing I wanted to do. But when you go down there and discover something for yourself, that just brings the artifact and the history to life. And I think that's a good segue into the reason why we're actually meeting tonight, is because of a recent find back in August. And I absolutely love that find because I was able to connect the artifact with a descendant of the person that dropped that artifact into the river over 100 years ago.
I love this story. It's fantastic. So how did that all begin?
Yeah, so it actually started on your website, which is amazing. So I was, I'm not sure if you have the slide.
Oh yes, I will bring them up right now.
So I put a few slides together just to kind of show people the excitement of finding something in the River Thames. And if you can skip to the third image.
I mean, I'm sorry, I'm just.
Yeah, so these are some of the artifacts that I've found over the past 8 years that I've been mudlarking.
Oh, I see what you mean about being visual. That's a feast for the eyes in itself.
Yeah, so it's amazing. Most of these things were found some of them were found with a metal detector, but really you find things from all ages. So the oldest thing in this pile is from the Roman era. So it's about 2,000 years old. I'm trying to spot it. There's so much else going on in this image. So I found Roman things, medieval things, Tudor, Stuart, Georgian, Victorian, all the way up to modern things as well. And really every single object tells a different story about London and the people who lived in London during those time periods. And if you skip to the next image,
Oh,
we
wow.
also find a lot of clay pipes, as you see kind of at the bottom of the image. To the right-hand side, you can see a bit of the Roman pottery. It has kind of a black orangish look to that. That's
Oh, wow. Yeah.
yeah,
Whoa.
nearly 2,000 years old. And a lot of these things are toys. There's a seal matrix that somebody used. You can see a gold coin there in the center dated 1803. That's the only gold coin that I've found in the Thames. But it's just really every object tells you something different about London. And it just leads you on a journey.
And
So
what I love about this is it's everyday history. These are things that people held in their hands. They used. They were part of everyday life. I mean, I'm assuming the number of pipes you're finding is because they were single use. Were they disposable kind of?
yeah, a lot of times they were, yeah, single use. They're kind of the cigarette butts of that time period. Yeah. But like you said, a lot of these things wouldn't appear in museums because museums, they kind of show the best of the best. They kind of show the silver, the gold artifacts, the things that kings and queens would have worn, but you very rarely see the mundane or kind of the ordinary artifacts that you and I would have had. And you see the round ceramic thing that says A.B. Buxton on it.
Yeah.
And that's the base of an egg cup. So somebody was using that for their breakfast and maybe broke it and then just tossed it into the river. But each one of these has a tangible connection with history, which is just quite fascinating to research. So actually I spend about 4 hours per week mudlarking, but I would say I spend triple that amount of time just researching each one of these artifacts and trying to figure out, first of all, what it is, who might have dropped it in the Thames, what period it's from, what its historical value is. I'm not interested in the monetary value of these things. It's more the history that's the important and interesting thing.
Oh, wow. I mean, yeah, I could spend hours looking at this. What? So, we'll pop back to the story we were mentioning
Yeah.
quickly. So, this was the site of your discovery, was it?
Yeah, so normally we don't give away find spots, but it kind of tells you a little bit about the story itself. So on the left-hand side is Chiswick area, and on the right-hand side is the Barnes area. So I live about 2 minutes from this location, which is Chiswick, which is an island within the River Thames. And at low tide, you can walk out to the island. So I actually stood on the island to take this picture. But over on the other side is where I discovered something very unique. And I was metal detecting that day. And in the distance, you can actually see Fulham. So I wasn't too far from Fulham, and I'll come back to that connection. So if you flick on to the next slide. So in the previous image, you could see in Barnes that you have a lot of trees. It's a forest. It used to be a towpath. And a lot of people walk their dogs, they go cycling, they go jogging, and just do a lot of recreation along that path through the forest. And I take my kids there all the time on cycling trips, etc. So I was metal detecting back in August this year, so 2020. And I came across this round object when I heard a beep in my headphones. And I dug it up, but I thought, oh, it's just another Victorian halfpenny, because we find a lot of Victorian coins from the mid to late 19th century on that side of the river. And if you see just along the bottom of the coin, you can make out some words. And I couldn't quite make it out fully because the coin was quite encrusted. So if you flick to the next image, you can see
Oh, wow.
the coin after cleaning. So I use what's called electrolysis, which is kind of electricity to gently fizz it, and it fizzes off all the crud and restores the coin. So this is actually a Victorian halfpenny, and the person that made this smoothed down the surface And then this is hand carved. So somehow they carved this in to the actual surface of the coin and then made the hole at the top. And when I first saw the name and the address, I thought, oh, this must be a military dog tag. So the person must have been in the, like a soldier or in the Navy or something, and probably had that suspended from their neck, and it dropped off at some point and fell into the river. But it's very unusual to find something in the Thames that has somebody's name on it and their personal address. So it says S. Smith, 13 Delorme Street, Fulham Palace Road. So this is about 1 mile to 2 miles from where I was mudlarking. So it's quite interesting. The guy didn't go far before he lost this into the river about 100 years ago. So the coins about that time period were dated about 1890, 1880, sometime around that time period.
I mean, it's fascinating that that's hand carved. I mean, it must have had a very steady hand, because it almost looks like it's stamped.
Yeah. Well, you'll find out why in just a second. But so I obviously was, wow, this is amazing. So the first thing I did is to Google to see if that address still exists. So I went to Google Street View and typed in the name of the street, and it popped up straight away, and a Victorian house is still there. So I was like, ooh, I wonder if they still live there, or maybe a descendant still lives there. So I didn't actually go to the address, but we have a Facebook forum, and I posted this image on the Facebook forum, and we have a lot of clever people on this Facebook forum. And a woman named Karis Lacey kindly offered to do a bit of research about this. So she just did a lot of searching online. And first of all, she found on the National Archives, so the UK National Archives, which is just up the river on the
we know it well.
Yeah, in Kew, just by Kew Bridge. And she was able to find his name is Samuel Smith. So he was listed in the census from 1911. So it was the Census of England and Wales, dated 1911, and it had Sam Smith with this address listed, as well as every member of his family. So he had a son and a daughter, and the daughter's name was Nora Smith, and she was born in 1903. And we then found out through your website, so Karis went to findmypast.co.uk and was able to track down Nora, and found out that Nora married Stanley Shayers back in 1928. And then we could track that down, and then he or both of them had a son called Peter Shayers. And we were able, which I couldn't believe, you actually had his address, his home address listed on the website, which I thought the Data Protection Act wouldn't allow you to do that. So I was very thankful.
Modern day electoral registers, they're great.
Yeah. So this was actually from the electoral rolls. That's how you got the address, his personal address. But the last electoral roll that he was signed up for was in 2014, so about 6 years ago. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna risk it anyways. I'll just write a note to him and see if he actually responds. So in so I found this on like the 30th of August, and on the 5th of September, so just a few days later, Karis passed all this information on to me, and thankfully on your website, you kindly provided that address. I wrote a handwritten note. I took this exact image, I printed it off, and I put it in the envelope and offered to return the dog tag, and I would bring it to their house. But I didn't want to put that in the mail just in case it wasn't his real address, and then it would just be lost forever. So lo and behold, I waited for about 4 weeks, and I was checking the mail every day and seeing just has something arrived, asking my wife, kids, has anything arrived for me? And then a month later, so beginning of October, I got a handwritten letter in the mail, and my hands were trembling when I opened it because I was so excited. And this is the letter here.
Wow.
Handwritten letter. And that wasn't the best thing that was inside. If you flick to the next image, oh,
Oh,
that's
this
the
is the
census
census.
that I mentioned. Yeah.
Do love the 1911 census. One of the things I love about the 1911 census as well is that these returns are actually filled in by the householders themselves. So that
Ah,
handwriting will be Samuel's.
oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
I
he
did
will have
not
filled
know
that in
that.
himself. So you see the red annotations at the end, they will have been filled in by the enumerator, but the family details themselves will have been. Oh, it was. We can see it was actually filled in by Emma because there's her signature at the bottom.
Oh, you're
Signature.
right. Oh,
Yeah.
wow, wow. Yep, and there's the address. You can see it right there, 13 Delorme Street. So that kind of just verifies that that was his address at that time. So he must have lost the coin at that time. If you just flick back for a second to that last
Sorry.
image, so just while we're on that, you can see what his occupation was. So it says that he was a mason's laborer.
I see. That explains the incredibly neat carving.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he was a very skilled with his hands and could make that carving engraving himself. And it's